Hello aspirants, looking at current affairs for 30th November. These are the 11 news items which we have picked up from the Hindu. The first one, 7 soldiers, 6 militants killed in twin attacks near Jammu. So attacks by infiltrators still continue. In Jammu region, there was this one attack plus also another attack took place near the international border in Jammu region where border security force BSF patrol came under attack and were injured. So this is also in the background of takeover by General Qamar Javed Bajwa as the new army chief in Pakistan. So the attacks and counterattacks still continue. Next news item is low risk flyer. Security at airport will now be a breeze. So center is thinking of an idea of having a risk-based pre-screening plan. Means civilians who are planning to have their air tickets booked can have this pre-screening done. So they can submit the information as required by the government, and based on the information submitted, they can be, if they pass through, they can be given this secure traveler idea, notion, a tag that they are a secure traveler. So such travelers do not have to wait in queues for all security checks, and it can be hastened. So this will help in easing the traveling for passengers. So similar idea is already in effect in USA. So US Customs and Border Protection has this program called Global Entry. So this Global Entry program allows speedy clearance for low risk passengers. So when they arrive in USA, this is in effect. So something on this line is what India is also planning to have. So this is, they say that you have to establish your credentials and you have to pass through the biometric test. So once you authenticate yourself, then security clearance process will be very quick. So this is there, no processing lines, global entry of USA, no paperwork, access to expedited entry benefits in other countries, available at all major US airports, and it reduces wait time. So this global entry ID cards are provided by even USA. So we'll also have something on this line launched soon. Then the next news item is ISRO, Indian Space Research Organization. ISRO drones help map disasters in Northeast. So drones are UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles. You must have seen these have become very common these days. So drones are also used to take pictures, images. So generally these drones have been developed even by Indian Space Research Organization's Northeastern Space Application Center. So Space Application Center of ISRO is there in Ahmedabad. Another Northeast Space Application Center was established in 2000. So since the year 2000, this center is functioning, and presently the news is that this has tested UAVs or drones, unmanned aerial vehicles or drones, to assess the regional problems in Northeast, and they can be used for various purposes like measuring diseased paddy fields, to assess the damage, to see the cause of frequent landslides in the region. So they have been used for these purposes. So ISRO does launch satellites which provide even remote sensing data, images which can be used for studies, plus even it excels in development of UAVs, drones, and these can be used for studying an area much smaller than what a satellite can do. So though it has area shortcoming, but it can give excellent information which can be used for various sectors. So this is of significance. Then the next news item is industries should use recycled groundwater. So the Ministry of Water Resources had brought forth a bill, a draft bill which had been put in public domain, and in this bill there were significant ways proposed to ensure that groundwater is well regulated. So this bill provided for even every individual to have certain amount of water for life. So some form of right to water was ensured. And also it provided for protection of groundwater from undue exploitation and pollution. It had measures which made it compulsory to use rainwater harvesting in residential projects. So these were some of the provisions, but this bill has been amended now to add some more provisions, and these are restrictions which have been put on companies, farmers and other groups on how groundwater is used. So it mandates that industries can use only recycled water. And also activities such as gardening would require use of only treated sewage water. So these provisions are being added. So it's a draft bill. It will be put in public domain, invite public opinion. They will take everything into consideration, and then a final bill will be drafted, and then that bill, once approved by the cabinet, would be put forth before the parliament. So it's a government's bill. So through the cabinet approval, then it goes to the parliament. And once passed by Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, it becomes an act. So this is just a draft bill right now. So of course, groundwater depletion is a significant concern in India, and we can see it is a grave ecological threat. Around 85% of drinking water and 65% of water for irrigation comes from groundwater. So groundwater resources undergo depletion. Water is a state subject. So this is a major concern, that since water is a state subject, the people who own a piece of land, the groundwater is also belonging to them. So they have right to groundwater under the land which they own. So based on these constraints, we'll have to see how the bill brings its provisions into effect, because it's a central bill. Then this is the water cycle actually, the groundwater. How does the groundwater flow come to? So this evaporation takes place from surface waters, ocean waters. Then they go up. Clouds are formed. Clouds, once they are filled, they bring in precipitation too. These vapors also transport. Clouds also move with wind, and then precipitation would take place on land as well as on oceans. On land, it will have a surface runoff. It will flow down due to gravity. It will fill up lakes also. It will go through rivers also. Rivers finally meeting the oceans. So this is one cycle completed. Plus here again, lakes also evaporation would take place. And there's something called transpiration. Transpiration which takes place through plants. So plants' leaves, evaporation of water from the plants' leaves, that is called transpiration. Leaves are majorly the part, also other parts of the trees undergo this. So because of sunlight, of course, evaporation and transpiration is because of sunlight. So this transpiration all go up, forming vapor. So then surface water, some of the surface water will also percolate down from the soil, and this is what forms the groundwater. So this is the groundwater flow, and of course groundwater flow beneath, and then it also meets percolated water. This also meets the oceans. So this is the complete water cycle. This is the declining water level even due to pumping wells. So when wells are pumped in, water level which is there. So when you dig, like even for digging a well, this is the water table. So groundwater is present below this blue line. So groundwater also flows beneath through the soil, and if you pump wells, then water table reduces, because with pressure all the water comes out. So of course here we see that this is a decline in the water table here. So this is shown here. Plus this is the groundwater wells in India which are decreasing. So 50% of India's groundwater wells are decreasing. So groundwater resources are under constraint in India. You can see the major states under constraint too are Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan. So these are areas under constraint too. Then this shows how much is the recharge, because groundwater recharge also takes place with rainfall, with again the water cycle continuing. So recharge does take place, but compared to usage, what is more? So in some states like Punjab, Rajasthan, Delhi, Haryana, recharge is not sufficient. Consumption is more than recharge. And states in the south and even UP, Gujarat, here we see that water use is less than the recharge. So recharge is sufficient for them to sustain. Then this is about groundwater use too. So groundwater in India, 87% of groundwater is used for agriculture. Then of the total groundwater. Earlier what we saw as percentage was more than 90% of drinking water source is groundwater. But out of the total groundwater available, 87% groundwater is used for agriculture, 9% is used for drinking and other purposes, and 4% goes to industries. So that way. Then the next news item is BJP Congress get nod to recall FCRA appeals. So this is regarding Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. So there was a ruling, a judgment of 2014 by Delhi High Court, in which it said that BJP and Congress, both the political parties, have violated FCRA because they received funding from a London-based multinational, Vedanta. So Vedanta Group's funding in 2007 and 2009 are violations, and they should be prosecuted by the Election Commission and relevant provisions under the Representation of People's Act. So this was the ruling which was challenged in the Supreme Court by both BJP and Congress. They said that FCRA has been amended in 2010, and that amendment is with prospective effect, because Vedanta is not a foreign fund, because it's for foreign funds. So Vedanta Group is not foreign source, foreign company, because more than 50% of its shareholders are Indians. So the definition, how a foreign firm is to be defined, that modification amendment which was done, they say it is applicable from retrospective effect. So these contributions in 2007 and 2009 are also covered. So we should not be prosecuted. The Supreme Court has agreed and has allowed them to withdraw their appeals. So that is the news right now. So it was covered in 23rd November too. So you can refer that news too for the continuation. Then the next news item is even nil vacancies won't cut backlog report. So a study was ordered by Supreme Court by National Court Management Systems Committee. So this committee made a study based on Supreme Court's direction. In 2014 it was set up, and after 2 years it was supposed to submit its report. So now it has submitted its report, in which it says that the number of judges appointed are not sufficient to take care of the backlog. So it was the Law Commission's recommendation. So it was basically set up to study recommendations made by Law Commission on pendency with relation to the backlog and judges' strength. So there are pending cases, there are backlog of cases. So how much of the judges are required to take care of this? So Law Commission has given its recommendations quite often. Even Chief Justice of India, Justice Thakur, had recently said that 70,000 judges are required to clear pendency. But then this committee's report, it says that even these numbers are not sufficient. There are much more number of judges required. So it says that in 1987, Law Commission had recommended 44,000 judges to battle backlog. But currently the country has only 18,000 judges. So you can see the huge lacunae here. It says in the last 5 years, the number of new cases filed in the High Courts of India have increased by 24%. Pendency has increased by 32%. But the effective judge strength has increased by only 8.5%. So there is a long-term scientific method required to assess the number of judges required in courts, which has not been done till date. So that is what it is calling for. Then another point which the Supreme Court raised is regarding the allocation of funds which were directed under the 14th Finance Commission's recommendation to improve justice delivery system in the states in India. So the Supreme Court is now asking the center to provide detailed breakup of how these have been allocated. So this, the court has said that it will put forth the report affidavit before the Supreme Court in 10 days. So we'll wait and watch what comes forth. So there is of course infrastructure required. There are lack of courtrooms too. Even if there are vacancies, there is still need for infrastructure too, to ensure that posts can be filled up. So this is the whole issue which is going on for long now. So vacancies in lower courts, Law Commission reports, they have said that judge population ratio has to raise to 50 judges per million population. Million means 10 lakh. So per 10 lakh population, there should be 50 judges. So India's current judge population ratio is only 17 as against 50 recommended. Also, we have discussed about vacancies in lower courts in news yesterday as well. So that is there. Then the next news item is Antriksh major revenues will come from SATCOM business. So Antriksh Corporation Limited is an arm of Indian Space Research Organization. It has also been separated from ISRO and become independent in 2011. It is a mini Ratna company and it will complete 25 years of its existence in 2017. So Antriksh is commercial arm, means it will market various products and services of the Space Research Organization. So various services and products which are marketed are actually of 3 types. One is satellite communication market, SATCOM market. Second is launch services. Indian PSLV, Polar Satellite Launch Vehicles, have a huge market internationally. So that those launch services are there. And third one is remote sensing data. So India's remote sensing data is also quite cheaper and is in demand. Means remote sensing data of all over the world. So remote sensing data is in the form of images. So these revenue from EO or Earth observation or remote sensing data is another source of revenue. So these are 3 major sources of revenue for Antriksh, and presently it is said that satellite communication business is the future. About 70 to 75% of its revenues come from SATCOM business. Then next comes launch services, for which 15% is the contribution, and remote sensing data is less than 5%. So what is this SATCOM business? Satellite communication business is leasing. Leasing is providing for some time, leasing out on a rent. transponders for DTH broadcasting. So transponders means what? Transmitters and responders, receivers. So these are transponders which are part of the satellite launch, communication satellites launch. So these transponders are leased out. For DTH means direct to home. So direct to home is what I'll show you in the image below too. Then VSAT, very small aperture terminal. So all these are various technologies which we'll discuss down, these two. So for this, the digital satellite TV, all such services, these transponders are leased. So this is the satellite communication business, which is a major source of revenue. So this is there. Presently also we know that there is a chronic shortage of DTH operators in India. So Antariksh is also planning to bridge this gap. It is leasing capacity from foreign satellites. So it also has to launch more satellites. Also we need much more bandwidth too. So there is a demand for internet access at much higher speed too, all over the world as well as in India. Even villages in India need to be brought under internet. So we are also planning to launch high throughput satellites, which are the futuristic satellites. So these will help in drastically improving internet services. India is going to launch one such HTS, high throughput satellite, which is GSAT-11. So this will be launched. This is direct to home. So direct to home means from the satellite communication, the signal is sent to the satellite and then it goes to the dish TV antenna and it comes to your home. So this is DTH satellite. DTH is one way, direct to home communication. So earlier in the 1990s, satellite communication was not in this digital form. So KU bands which are there on the satellite transponders, these are used. Signals are transmitted using these KU bands. So these are frequency bands. So on these satellite transponders. So these KU bands used will be completely digital. Earlier the band used was C band. So these were analog. So even we are digitizing in India too. Digitization for TV signals is going on. So set-top box is compulsory. So all this is through this KU band being used right now. So this is DTH. Then next is, so these are better services. When digital signals are used, even the image quality and the sound quality improves. Then this is VSAT, very small aperture terminal. So these VSAT satellites which are there, antennas which are there, are actually used for two-way communication and they use geostationary satellites. So from geostationary satellite, the communication would go forth through the satellite and come back to the subscriber's VSAT dish, and then it can be routed and they can access the services. And there is also communication to and fro. So this is the function of VSAT, that it is a two-way communication through geosynchronous satellites, and these are generally used to transmit narrowband data. Narrowband data like you're using your card, credit card or debit card, or using RFID data. So all such are functioning is through this VSAT technology. So this is there. Then the next is the remote sensing, which I spoke of up there, the third source of revenue for the government through Antariksh. So remote sensing basically means sending data. Images are collected by these satellites and these images give much more detail on the surface of the earth, about the earth. So about even the groundwater resources, about vegetation cover. So all this information can be collected through remote sensing. So remote sensing basically means you are far away, remote, and you are collecting information. So that is without physical contact, information is collected through satellites. So that is there. Then there are two types of remote sensing, active and passive. So of course light would be required for these images. So if they are used using the sunlight, then they are called passive remote sensing, and if light is also through the satellites, then it is called active remote sensing. So that is there. Then the next news item is Australia's Great Barrier Reef sees largest coral die-off ever. So first we'll have to understand what are corals. So corals are these tiny organisms which are in the form of polyps, and they live in colonies. They live all together in huge colony, invertebrate animals, and they are having coexistence with algae who stay on them. So these algae called zooxanthellae, they live on these coral polyps, and these are the ones who produce food, and this food is used by both. So that's a coexistence. In harmony, they stay together. So these corals also secrete calcium carbonate, which forms their exoskeleton. So these corals may die, but calcium carbonate stays, and they keep on building on top, one on top of the other, and that is how coral reefs are formed. So these are hardened surfaces. So these coral reefs are underwater calcium carbonate formation secreted by corals, and they are formed, of course, by these coral polyps whose exoskeleton is this. Then there are different types of coral reefs also. So you can see there are three types of coral reefs basically: fringing reef, barrier reef and atoll reef. So that is how they are formed. Fringing is closely connected to the border of the land body. So they are in shallow waters close to the land mass. They are called fringing reefs. Barrier reefs are having a lagoon. So there's some water body which is enclosed and the reefs are formed. So it forms something like a water body enclosed by this coral. So that is called barrier reef. So some part of the water is enclosed. And then atoll reef is complete encircling of a water body. So that says a complete island, not an island, but actually water body formed and encircled by these corals. So that is called atoll reef. So there are different types of reefs also formed. So then the next is about coral bleaching. So presently the news is regarding coral bleaching in Australia. So what is coral bleaching is, healthy corals have these algae and coral polyps living together, but when they come under stress, temperature increases drastically, or some variation takes place and not sufficient nutrients, then these algae leave the coral. So under stress, algae leave the coral, and that is how they lose their color. So algae are the one which provide corals the color. So once the algae leaves, then the coral is left vulnerable to, and this is called coral bleaching. So this is harmful to the corals. Then the corals cannot stay, they will die. As I said, they coexist. So this happens due to change in ocean temperature. They also happen due to pollution, groundwater runoff of industrial sewage and all this, which goes into the water body, overexposure to sunlight, extremely low tides. All these are cases in which coral bleaching takes place. So presently we are seeing coral bleaching in Great Barrier Reef. So this is where Great Barrier Reef lies in Australia. So what is in news presently is that coral bleaching has taken place in 2016, which is killing much more corals than ever before. Similar coral bleaching incidents have taken place twice earlier in 1998 and 2002. So drastic coral bleaching took place, and presently in the northern regions too, which is much more pristine, as they say, much more untouched, is also being affected. So it says that it will take 10 to 15 years for these corals to be regenerated, because of course they can be regenerated, but then there are fears that another coral bleaching incident may take place even before this, and then it will result into irreversible damage. So these are the fears. The Australian government also we have taken measures to ensure that corals are protected. Also this is the reason why there are huge tourists attracted to this region too. So that would also be affected. So that is there. Also there are other reasons too because of which corals die. There are coral eating starfish too. These are crown of thorns starfish. So they are also blamed for the reduction in coral population as such. So this is there. So presently also bleaching has occurred due to warming of the sea temperature. So in March, April, seawater temperatures here had warmed drastically, and this has resulted in this coral bleaching. And Great Barrier Reef is the world's biggest coral reef which we know till date. So this is the news. There are corals even in India. So corals, you can see coral reefs. They are there in Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Lakshadweep Islands, Gulf of Mannar down south, Gulf of Kutch in Gujarat. So they have coral reef ecosystems. Then the next news item is poor diet sees scurvy reappear in Australia. So scurvy is a disease which occurs due to lack of vitamin C. So vitamin C comes through fresh fruits and vegetables. So sea voyages, during these long sea voyages in earlier times, sailors would not get sufficient dose of these fresh vegetables, fruits. They would not get sufficient quantity of these. That is the reason why they develop scurvy. So scurvy is generally identified with bleeding gums, rashes on legs and joints, muscle pains, muscle weaknesses. So this is the disease. Presently we are seeing that scurvy has again re-erupted and is seen in Australia, in Britain and other European countries also. And the reason for this is said to be change in the diet. So since the diet has changed, dietary habits have become poorer with lack of sufficient inclusion of fresh fruits and vegetables. So this is the reason why this is occurring. So lack of vitamin C results in formation of defective formation of collagen and connective tissues of bones, and Then this causes bruising, bleeding gums, blood spots in the skin, joint pains. So wound healing also becomes delayed. So these are the signs. Vitamin C is also called ascorbic acid. So this is a disease, scurvy. Then the next news item is master control genes help worms regrow part. So this is acorn worm. So this acorn worm, which is part of the hemichordata. So there are chordatas and non-chordatas. Chordata is those who have vertebral column. So these are hemichordatas, somewhere in between. So in this phylum, in this group of animals, this acorn worm has the ability to regrow every major body part. It can regrow its heart, its nervous system, its internal organs. So when this acorn worm is cut, sliced in between the two parts, the other part completely generates everything, and they become exact replica of each other. So of the same size, same measurement, they form as two individual separate organisms. When this separated organism is also further cut, also sliced, again the same thing happens. So they can regenerate themselves from scratch, from nothing. So this is of significance because this can help in even humans regrowing their body parts, and this is possible because even the genes of acorn worms have quite similarity with the genetic structure of humans. So this is that we share thousands of genes with these animals. So researchers are now finding out which is the master control gene of all these set of genes which is responsible for activating this pattern of regeneration. So this, once identified, can be used for regeneration even in humans. So this is of significance. There are other organisms too, like starfish. They can also regenerate themselves. So this is the acorn worm. Starfish also, if its arm is cut, it can regenerate itself. So there are such organisms. Lizard, you must be knowing, if its tail is cut, it can regrow its tail. Then salamander. So there are some organisms who can regenerate. Then the next news item is spinal fluid changes harm astronaut vision. Astronauts who stay for a long time in space, like for months they stay on International Space Station ISS. So when such astronauts come back on Earth, they complain about blurry vision or not having clear eyesight. So the reason for this was felt that the blood flow to the upper part of the body, to the brain, may increase because they are under microgravity conditions in space, and now when they come back to Earth they experience gravity. So these are bringing in these temporary changes. But presently the brain scans on these astronauts and the study done has shown that it is not blood but the cerebrospinal fluid whose flow increases. So cerebrospinal fluid is the fluid here which passes through the various parts of the brain, you can see here. So it provides a cushion to the brain and spinal cord, because when this nutrients are passed through and the waste is collected, so this acts as a cushion. So this cerebrospinal fluid increases. So this results in putting pressure on the eye, and the eyeball is flattened, and it also inflames, sores the optic nerves. So this results in these changes which are seen, the problems which astronauts face. This is a study which has come up. So that is there. So this much is what we'll cover today. Thank you so much.